All right, everybody, here is my second lower body workout of the week. I was a little bit rushed today because I had a client at 7 o'clock, so I got to the gym a little late today as well. I got there as opposed to be getting there around 4:15, got there around 4:45, 4:50, so usually around 5 o'clock I'm halfway done with my workout. Today kind of to rush and take out a few mobility drills. As most people will come to learn, I like to mobilize a little bit more on the days that I train lower body. So here I am doing a little bit of a hamstring / hip distraction drill. Usually I would hold this for about anywhere between 90 seconds to 2 minutes, but I ended up holding it for just about a minute. Like I said, I had to cut things short. So this is great for some anterior, posterior hip capsule mobilization. It's great for stretching the more proximal fibers of the hamstring, especially at that ischial tuberosity. Overall great stretch. All right, so here I am, and I am definitely feeling the hours upon hours of driving that I've been doing. Just got hired by the 49ers the other day to be one of their sports massage therapists. I'm just commuting a lot back and forth. So this is an Ildoa psoas stretch. The psoas major crosses many joints, attaches onto the vertebral bodies of the spine, lumbar spine, and inserts at the lesser trochanter just below the hip. So this is a great way. Just make sure that you really try to keep that spine as tall as possible. You're engaging your trunk. You're flexing that hip that's trailing in the back, primarily getting your glute engaged, and you want to make sure that your posture is good. If you do this stretch effectively, you are going to feel it not only at that anterior hip region, but you're also going to feel it within your belly as well, because that's where the psoas usually, the meat of the muscle is in that lower abdomen region. So I'm missing a little bit of hip extension. I had a hard time getting my hips into extension for this drill. And now I'm moving on to my more core activation drills. This is the bird dog a la Stu McGill. The idea is try to keep the trunk as stable as possible. Really just, as you bring the arm into flexion and the hip into extension, you want to make sure that there's minimal trunk rotation, there's minimal lower back going into extension, and you want to make sure that you're staying as tight and rigid as possible. You hold it at the top for anywhere between 5 to 10 seconds. Sometimes I like to just use static drills and hold it for 30 seconds, but since I'm getting ready for physical activity, I just want to make sure that I got it done quickly. Another one out of Stu McGill's book, the side bridge, aka the side plank, aka whatever you want to call it. Same thing, there's some technical nuances to this drill. You want to make sure that you're as neutral as possible. You want to make sure that your shoulders are stacked, your hips are stacked, and everything's basically where it needs to be. You want those hips to be in extension. You don't want any type of hip sag on whatever hip is closest to the floor, and you want to make sure that you're sort of engaging that lat for the arm that's on the floor as well. You don't want any type of anterior positioning at that humerus in this position, because it could be pretty problematic for the shoulder. I like to do it with my arm up. You could put your arm on the hip. I really don't care what you do with the other arm. I do it like this because it just gives me more stability. All right, now I'm moving into the warm-up sets. I'm not going to record all my warm-ups, just record with the empty bar, but one thing I want you guys to notice is that even when there's no weight on the bar, I'm still utilizing good technique. Don't get lazy. Treat the warm-up sets really as preparation for the activity you're about to do. Don't get lazy. Just don't get sloppy with your technique, because you can get hurt on your warm-up, and, you just want to prepare yourself for that activity as much as possible. I got stiff legged deadlifts today, so I want to make sure. The key thing is, because now I can't use my legs, I really want that lat to work. So you can see when I'm in the bottom position, I'm really driving that shoulder blade down, and I'm pulling that bar into me. I don't want it to slag or translate forward, because that's going to really eat up my lower back. This is my last warm-up set. I just basically didn't record it when it was 135, so You know, the technique on this is really weird for me. As the sets progress, I didn't record all my working sets, but I would definitely say the last 2 were much better than the first one. The idea is to try to keep your legs as stiff and straight as possible. You know, for me, that's really, really hard because I've never deadlifted that way. I mean, I've done RDLs before, but there's a difference coming from the top position going into a bottom position, you know, when you're eccentrically loading those hamstrings as opposed to just pulling from a dead stop. So this is my first working set. So as you can see, I'm just basically easing into my position. You know, I'm not going to kill myself over this. The idea is to, you know, try not to use the legs, really just try to use the hip extension as much as possible to bring that bar up. So, you know, pull it close, make sure, as you can see when I'm in the bottom position, I tuck the scapula down, I really lock in before I lift the bar off the floor. You know, the idea for this is really it's going to engage those glutes and hamstrings a lot because you're primarily focusing on hip extension. And as you can see, as the reps increase, my technique gets a little bit better because my legs are getting straighter. So, but yeah, I don't want to get injured, so I make sure that, you know, I come to a complete stop, reset, lock in, lift, control it on the way down. All right, second leg exercise is going to be the hamstring curl. So a couple of tips for hamstring curls. Number 1, notice how, like, you know, with my upper body, I'm actually pulling those handles into me. So what I'm trying to do with this is engage that lat. Lock in, make sure my spine is stable. Second point I will like to make is that I am controlling the eccentric on the hamstrings. The hamstring fibers are predominantly fast twitch, so I want to make sure that I'm really loading them appropriately, so I'm definitely focusing on that eccentric. The last primary movement of my lower body today will be hack squats. So, you know, my last mesocycle, a couple of mesocycles ago, I was performing hack squats with my Olympic lifting shoes, and it just made it night and day difference. It was so much harder. But, you know, now that I'm doing it with a flat foot or like my regular shoes, I actually prefer without the Olympic lifting shoes. I just felt a much better stretch in my lower body. I felt like my legs were working a lot harder. I felt like my knees felt better and everything else. So this will be done for 3 sets of 15 reps. Couple of notes here, guys. One thing that I hope people pick up from watching my videos is that I own every single repetition. Like, nothing's sloppy. There's no bouncing, there's no me giving up form for a couple of measly reps and things like that. I try to control the repetition on the eccentric and concentric. You know, unless there's pauses, but even then I would own that isometric contraction. So each of these reps, I'm definitely going down in a nice and controlled manner, trying not to bounce. Really, as I'm lowering myself, I really want to focus on feeling it in my quads, and that definitely was the case with this. So yeah, these are going to be done for 3 sets of 15 for the entire 5 weeks. All right. Every lower body day ends with calves and abs. I didn't film my abs today because it's pretty boring, and it's like I said, you guys can do whatever you want for your abs. Here for my calves, I did standing calf raises last time. Here I am performing donkey calf raises. Another key point for you guys, notice how I pause in that bottom position. I'm basically taking the stretch reflex out of that muscle, making sure that I'm not loading that tendon, and notice how I pause at the top for about a couple seconds. I really feel it in my gastrocs. I don't feel it in my calcaneal tendon. I don't feel it in my plantar fascia at all. So a little tip you guys can do is, basically, pause in any position. Granted that the weight and load will allow it. Just don't jump in and try to do your 1 rep max with a pause. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you guys are learning something every time I post.